Welcome everyone, my name is Jordan Farmer. This is the Uncommon Ground YouTube channel where we are indoctrinating the masses. And today I'm going to be talking about how to reduce cost of living and the benefits of reducing cost of living. So the two main benefits of reducing cost of living are that people's lives are materially better. And paired with that, they'll be more independent because they have more money relative to their cost of living. And then the second benefit is that it will actually grow the economy, which is really cool. To understand why it will grow the economy, you have to understand that there are three types of economic activity: consumption, the buying of stuff; production, the making of that stuff; and investment, which is strategically redirecting capital within the system. When the gap between people's income and cost of living is what makes up the money that is available for the consumption and investment. It is what makes up the consumer market and the investment market. So if you reduce cost of living relative to that total income, you're going to increase the capital pool that will fuel the consumption market and the investment market within our country. So cost of living will grow the economy. It will allow for extra dollars to be able to be spent to make extra things, to provide extra services, or whatever it may be. But it will grow the economy and create more jobs. People will have more money to consume. People will then make more money because of the production that comes from having to meet that consumption need. And they'll have more money to invest. And then it's this dynamic system that's always growing. So how do we reduce cost of living? There's four main areas that I would consider in calculating cost of living. And these are four areas in which the government can, to some degree, make strategic interventions in order to reduce cost of living and improve people's lives: housing, energy, water, and transportation. So, housing. Real estate is extremely expensive in California, but in other states like Utah or Texas or Oklahoma or Nebraska, the cost of housing is a lot cheaper there. Now, the cost of a block of wood does not magically become more expensive just because it's entered a new state. Unless there's a tax on that, which sometimes I guess there can be, but there's no logical reason why a house should cost more to make and to build in California than in Utah. The materials should cost about the same, and the labor should be about the same, in terms of like the labor you would have to pay and the skills you would need in order to build the same exact unit of housing should be the same, but it's not. Why? Well, it has to do with two main issues with certain states and certain areas. One is the relationship between supply and demand. If you have a rapidly expanding population, which California does, and therefore you have a lot of demand for housing, if the supply of housing cannot react quickly enough to fill in that need, demand will exceed supply artificially, or more than it has to, at least, and that will increase prices because the demand is exceeding the supply. The other main other main reason why this happens is because of regulatory costs / the cost of doing business. If it actually costs more because of taxes or extra time that needs to be taken or slow rollouts of permits and stuff, that will increase the cost of actually making the thing that you then have to sell. Both of those contribute in major part to to increased costs in housing in certain areas like California. So the way you fix that is you reduce regulations so that people get their permits quickly. You can have a grandfather system where if you've already built good housing and it's already been approved and up to code, then you automatically get permits going forward, and then it gets inspected after the fact. And then if you messed up, you have to go fix it. But that's the way the process should work. It shouldn't slow everyone down before they can just build on their own property or build what they want. So just reduce regulatory burdens. And then in doing that, and by making sure that you can have good construction businesses and things like that, you'll have the supply react to the demand quickly enough, and that will help reduce the cost of housing. Another way you can go about reducing the cost of housing is to have public housing, and we already spend money on this, but public housing that is not dependent on you being poor, but is available to everyone and is free. And it's just standardized housing, like little 2-bedroom apartments or something, like they have in Singapore. And so if we adopted the Singapore model, then all of the money that typically goes to mortgages, or all the money that typically goes to rent, or all the money that you have to make and that typically goes to all the money that you have to make and that typically goes to housing in general, that money will then be available for consumption and investment. We'll grow the economy, create additional job opportunities, and this cheaper housing will make it so that people don't have to work as much in order to build their wealth and in order to move forward. People can still live in other areas. The point is not to make luxury housing for everybody. The point is to just make sure that the housing cost is actually eliminated so that everyone's income can actually carry more weight in the market, and more investment and just everything across the board. It's good. Moving on to energy. One thing, you just need to make sure you have all of the different possible sources for the supply of energy available, whether it's gas or any kind of fossil fuel or electricity or nuclear or solar or whatever it is. You want to have in the marketplace all of those resources available. I made a video of how we fix climate change and the excess levels of CO2 in the atmosphere without getting rid of fossil fuels or even doing anything to them whatsoever. We can completely let the industry keep going forward as is, and the problem is being handled in and of itself through some of those energy sources, and by implementing the policies that I lay out that has nothing to do with reducing our energy sources and uses, we can still fix the problem. Anyways, energy has to do with your PG&E bill, your electricity bill, your cost of heating and air conditioning your home, your cost of heating your water, your cost of cooking, and many other things. And at the gas pump, your cost of transporting yourself and moving. And you have, on that front, regressive taxes, or taxes on consumption. And that additional cost of consumption actually is a greater percentage of a poor person's income than a richer person's. If it's $1 and you make 10 grand a year, it's a big chunk. And if you make 100 grand a year, it's a much smaller chunk. It's 1/10 of the chunk. So getting rid of taxes associated with energy sources as well will make a tremendous difference. And I would implement, so this next policy, I would implement either at the county level or at the city level. And for me specifically, Fresno City or Fresno County. You take out a loan. It would cost, I think for the county, it would cost about $2 billion to do this. We have about 300,000 housing units. And if you covered all of them with solar panels and with the Tesla style walls, the battery wall packs on the side, and we made that investment, you took out the loan, so it's not the taxpayer footing the bill immediately, but you actually, it's not the taxpayer footing the bill immediately. It's taken out as a loan, and you have to immediately deal with the cost of the interest. But if we made that investment, you would save, I think when I did all these numbers, it was at the Fresno County level. It would cost about, I think it was $2 or $3 billion, but it would save about, It would save something like $90 million in energy expenses every single year for people around here, which would massively reduce the cost of energy. It would increase the overall supply of energy, and it would make it cheaper so that all the energy that's available left over, it would make it cheaper for businesses to use. And any excess can then be sold out to the other areas around your city or your county. And you can have to make sure that people don't feel punished for having already gotten solar panels, you can just have a block grant where you give them some money, 70% or whatever of the cost of making it, for having done it already themselves, just to make sure people don't feel like they're getting screwed for having made a good decision beforehand. And that would reduce cost of living. So you have housing, you have energy. The next one would be water. Water, we need to increase our efficiency in our use of water. And the main way we will do that is through having refiltration and recirculation and reuse systems in our houses. So that after you use water for drinking and it goes to the toilet or down the sink or whatever, it then gets redirected, filtered however, and that money is what then goes back in through the toilet, or that goes out to water the lawns or whatever it may be. And there's different technologies and different ways of approaching this that will help create efficiency in our water usage. And the less water we use, the less we consume of that particular product, the more supply will be left over. So it'll be cheaper, and we'll have, like, it'll go further. It'll help our farmers. It'll just help everything. So that's an investment also that should be made. And I think at the local level or the state level, I support these kinds of investments pretty much at any level, but I would like to see these policies implemented at the local level because they help people at the local level. It's a community project. You could have mandates to make sure you're hiring companies in the local area so it recirculates into the economy locally there. There's all sorts of benefits, and not everyone's going to be down for this kind of socialist policy. So I don't want to force it on them. So I'd rather it just be done at the local level, but it makes sense from a capitalistic standpoint, in my opinion, as well as from a human quality of life standpoint. And that's pretty much it. Oh, and this is an idea to all you entrepreneurs out there. This is an idea that I'm just going to give you for free because I don't want to do it myself, and I'd love to see it happen. If we used mirrors to create hyper-focused points of sunlight near big bodies of water, or oceans, ideally, the ocean is what I'm thinking. You can have water go into this little area, like the tide, whenever it goes up a certain point, fills in this thing, and then you have this focused point of sunlight using mirrors, so there's no energy except from the sun involved in this, and it heats up that one point, and then it steams up, and then it gets collected, like taken somewhere and collected. That's a passive desalination still that requires no energy inputs, that would produce tons and tons of pure water for us. And then we can then take that, and here's the most important thing with the water: we need to have high quality free water. You shouldn't pay a water bill. You should have water available to you at your home always, and it should be top-notch quality. The Europeans have this down much better than we do. We need to get down to the rock-hard science of what the best water is for humans to consume, and make sure that all human beings across the planet, but first here, have access to that water. Transportation, the most straightforward answer, honestly, for me, to make transportation more cost-effective is it's a few things, but basically it's the free market. 2, Elon Musk. And 3, partnerships with Elon Musk. So I'm kind of saying the same thing 3 times over. His ability to build and hire and design and everything. If any government body that can get a hold of Elon Musk and get contracts with him and get him working for them will set the standard for the infrastructure of the future. That man is a genius. I want to go to engineering school to be able to at least understand what he's doing on a more real level. And, building things to help humanity is the essence of serving, and is the essence of being a productive person, someone who's in that position like he is, who's doing the most with it. Okay. And then you can also have public transportation. There's cool double long buses. Check out Utah. They have all kinds of in the last few years, they've come out with some really cool bits of infrastructure when it comes to public transportation. The double wide long hybrid buses, that whole system was really cool to see. And there's a lot of other things, but it's all about effectiveness and creativity and trying to look for something new. I'd like to see I would just like to see a lot of brainstorming on that, because that is something that, I've gotten limited ideas on, and I would just love to see people competing across the country to come up with the coolest stuff. But yeah, transportation, infrastructure, or whatever, like all of that, I don't really have good answers for, because it's a lot of, what does your city look like? How do we build around this city? Is it a beach town? Is it a this or is it a that? Is it just a city? Like in New York City, where all the buildings are that are above a certain level, you could have a whole second floor or multiple floors of sidewalks, so that people don't have to be so piled on top of each other as they're walking on that one level of sidewalk, and other things like that. So it's a lot of playing to the individual situation. Lastly, and this is not one of the ways to reduce cost of living directly, but this is an indirect way to do it. The more economic opportunity you have, the higher people's incomes are, and the cheaper it is to do business in your area. So the more investment gets brought in there, so the more production is brought there, so that people have more jobs and more opportunity and have greater incomes and the whole deal. By increasing economic opportunity in this way, you increase the gap between income and cost of living. So you're effectively reducing cost of living by proxy. If we do all these things, people will be much better off. And if you like this, please like and subscribe. Follow me on all the things, and share this, please. I think this is tremendous information. I wish I had known this and had someone to lay this out for me. So please share it, so that we can all get smarter together. We can level up our game, level up our political understanding, and get moving on. Peace. I'll see you tomorrow.